Tip. Hey, congratulations for Spirit Quest.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I guess the biggest and most important question that everyone's going to ask is, what were you guys smoking when you made this movie?
Well, you know what? I don't think Tip and I don't think either one of us would mind definitely being in that category of stoner comedy, stoner buddy comedy, you know, and the a la, you know, Seth Rogen or throwback to Cheech and Chong for sure. But I think for us, more than anything, the drug trip and kind of smoking weed and the mushrooms idea just gave us a chance to kind of explore and kind of go in a lot of different directions and have a lot of fun.
It seems like you guys did actually had a lot of fun. So what sparked the idea? Like you guys were like sitting around at a party one day and just decided like, you know what, let's go out in the desert and do sort of like, you know, this stoner comedy, or I mean, what triggered this?
And Brent had a short that he had called me about. I mean, you know, we were friends through UCB class, but had kind of gotten wrapped up in our own lives, and he called me with this short that I just always loved. And I mean, the genesis of that.
Yeah, I had written this thing, and really it was kind of the idea was, one, I wanted to do something that I could direct, that I could also be in, and then also direct myself. So it was the first time kind of doing a short where I would direct everything myself. And so I knew, you know, kind of just based on the resources that we had available to us, that going out to the desert and using a drug trip would allow us to have a lot of freedom and a lot of great production value, and you know, be able to go out with the skeleton crew and kind of have a bigger scope instead of just kind of being locked into one location in one room. You know what I'm saying?
So I get the idea of going out in the desert, but you guys came up with so many, I want to say like psychedelic vignettes, you know, little stories throughout. Was that something you guys like bounced off of each other, like trying to figure out, you know, the little adventures you two guys could go on together?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think, you know, we met in UCB, so the idea of these vignettes that not only are fun in and of themselves, but relate to each other, that where the vignettes themselves kind of have an answer to the one previous, even if it's not direct. That was a shared language that we had. And then, yeah, it was like, I mean, both meeting up, but also just like phone calls, just like, hey, this idea, this came to me. I think this is funny. And the other person being like, yeah, I think that's very funny. And it was, a lot of times it was as simple as like, I just think the two of us dressed like friars is really funny. We have to figure out what that is. You know what I mean? And we knew that was, you know, and that there was just something tasty about that to us. And then we just explored it and figured out how that fit in, you know, so.
I think too, on just a little bit of deeper level, and going back to the impetus of the short film, was, you know, I was familiar with this really old book called Pilgrim's Progress, which was about a spiritual journey and kind of like how you get to heaven. And so that really, I was like, it would be really interesting to subvert that idea about two guys who are kind of smoking weed and going out to the desert to do shrooms. And so, but that gave us kind of the guideposts. And so with the chapters, like the first one is, you know, going out into the unknown, going into the wilderness of the desert. And then 2, you meet this guy and really he's rambling and giving us a lot, but his idea is you don't go any further. You don't need to go any further into the unknown. And then chapter 3 being about kind of facing that internal monologue and anxiety that we all face, you know. And then like Tip was just talking about, the friars and the bandits is kind of, again, like the signpost of we all have to kind of face different versions of ourselves in different parts of our lives. And so we kind of had these specific things, and then gave us an opportunity from there to go, all right, well, we know what we want to hit. And that allowed us to just have a lot of fun and get as wild as we wanted to.
So how many trips did you guys go out in the desert to film all this?
Oh man, it felt like endless trips. It felt like we were living out there by the end. What do you think, Tip?
Well, it had to have been at least 4 or 5. But I mean, but then some of them we were able to, you know, part of, again, to speak to what Brent was talking about earlier, where the drugs also just give you permission the same way he was saying the desert keeps you from just being in one room, the drugs are what let us not just be in the desert, because now we get to go anywhere we want. And that's what let us shoot some stuff in LA, you know, and in interior scenes as well. So I think about half of it was in the desert, and that was definitely a handful of sessions.
It was. I mean, the total shoot, the short that we filmed previously was a 2-day shoot, and then we ended up writing the feature-length script, and then from there we did 12 more days over the summer. So it was a lot, like you just said, picking our days, going out to the desert, being there for a few days, coming back to LA, shooting stuff, and kind of gradually getting this thing done over one summer.
Well, what you guys did was a lot of hiking and walking. That's for sure. And in costumes, you guys had so many different costumes you guys had to put on. Friar costume, bandits costume. Heck, I don't even know where you could get an astronaut costume from. It's like you guys robbed a Halloween store or something.
Yeah, exactly. It was a little bit of that kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the most fun too was a lot of those have their kind of initial scenes, and then they kind of come back, those characters. And so the initial scenes all being shot different nights or whatever, but then there are a couple moments in the desert where that was all in the same day or same session, and it was like running back to the car and switching out, and whoever was hiking past us while we were shooting that, being like, "Did I just see you as an astronaut, as a vampire, and now you're these friar guys?" Like, so that was super fun.
So for you gentlemen, which character you guys love playing the most?
Oh, for me, for sure. I've said this a couple times, I think now, but it still hasn't changed. I love the 70s versions of our characters that were kind of the goofy bandits. There was just so much to put those mustaches on and to kind of get into that era and that vibe. I could see us having a lot of fun with those characters just by themselves in a feature length version.
What about for you, Tip?
Man, I have to second that. I mean, we had a lot of fun with all of them, but those guys in particular were so kind of embodied and also just like out of their minds in a way that was just super fun. So yeah,
I know there was just so much I want to say randomness in this film. Like you just kept us audience guessing throughout from start to finish. How did you guys was it a very strong script when you guys actually wrote it, or there was a lot of improv going on throughout?
Yeah, I mean, I can start off like we started from a script, but we would rehearse it. And that's where we improv. And so we would improvise in a rehearsal and then rewrite the script so that when we went to shoot, Brent's also directing, so he can't be like both of us. Like you're out in the desert, you don't want to be super self-indulgent out there. Right. I mean, Brent, what else would you add to that?
I think for us too, I mean, that was the benefit. I mean, we knew as performers first, we're both actors first. Like we said, we met in acting class in UCB. So we knew that this was an opportunity to put ourselves in front of the camera. And that allowed us just so many benefits. I mean, we really did take our time as we were writing the script. We were then also blocking and rehearsing the scene right there. And so then that allowed just so much freedom when we were out on the day and on location. Especially for me as a director, it just allowed we knew what we were doing. We still allowed some room for whatever was going to come up. And like, if we did find some new funny stuff to add in, but for the most part, we had worked so hard on the script and really found a great timing with each scene that was what allowed us to be able to get, 10, 12 pages in a day and keep moving and be able to, and to go to so many different locations throughout the movie.
So Brent, how did you like your first feature film directing debut here with Spirit Quest? I mean, it must have been really tough, behind the camera and in front of the camera for this project.
Oh yeah, I mean, it honestly, it was just such such a dream experience. I've been talking about for so long. I mean, honestly, I came out in Los Angeles to be an actor in 2005, and even in the same time, that was still, we immediately were like, well, let's just go out and make our own movie. We can just go out and shoot it on our own. And so it's been a 15-year journey of like figuring out all the steps that you would need to take to be able to finally go out and do it. But I do feel like I was ready to take on that challenge, and I couldn't have found a better partner to not only be the lead in the movie with me, but be my co-writer and producer, somebody that was kind of also ready to take that next step and do something, full length like a feature. So I think it was challenging, but it also so many benefits because we were doing it independently. We had complete control. It was really kind of the perfect storm for me to give it a shot as a first-time director.
And how did you pull off those psychedelic trips? Those computer generated as psychedelic scenes for yourselves. That must have been a load of fun to figure out.
Oh, it was so much fun. And throughout, I think for me too, one of the biggest things with the project was building a team that all have so much talent and strengths and can bring it to this project and kind of let them, understand what the project is and then let their own voice kind of put it in. So we had found a really great animator and we had told him what we were doing. We sent him a version of the movie and we had seen what he was kind of doing on his own, and he was kind of able to meld kind of his ideas into what we had in mind. And I mean, it came out so beautifully. And Tip too, talk a little bit about, Tippy's the musician and a lot of the music and the soundtrack Tip performed and the music kind of became a character of its own. And Tip was so instrumental in bringing that, especially for that specific scene.
No pun intended. Yeah, no, I mean, this was such a fun project on so many levels. And, Brent was so generous about like, hey, let's make this an opportunity for us to do our thing, whatever that looks like and in whatever way. And then because of what the context is, we had so much permission in that. So yeah, whether it was writing the song, like the Dracula song or, so there were some pieces that I kind of had a sense of from the get-go myself, but there were also a lot of moments where Brent maybe had like a source, or our editor Andy, who is one of my oldest friends and we're all just super tight now. He had some ideas maybe in the cut, but a lot of it that Brent put together, kind of a soundtrack that then maybe we said, okay, it's something like this. How can we make our own version of that? Which was a really, that process specifically was new for me and I really loved it. So yeah, it was a really, really fun time.
I love it. You guys did everything yourselves here, and including cycling all around Los Angeles. Did you guys do all that all in one night?
We did that over 2 nights. We did that over 2 nights, and we actually, again, going back to just the writing of the script and rehearsing, but we did that over a couple days as well and rehearsed the scenes, making that trek. And it really was 12, 13 miles that we did ride. And then, did it over the course of a couple nights with a lead camera car and then a follow car. And I mean, we did it in the dead of night, 3 a.m, but unbelievable. We were able to get shots of us going down Beverly Boulevard, with no one else, us in the middle of the street. I mean, it's just phenomenal what we were able to accomplish, I think.
I think that's great. I was like going, I didn't know LA was so empty when you guys, rode on bikes, and almost fooled me that you stopped at a Beatles house. I was like going, is a Beatles going to show up in the film? What's going on?
You never know in that side of town.
Well, most excellent. And hey, I'm curious, which part of the desert you guys actually filmed all this at? Was it the Joshua Tree, desert? Is that where you guys filmed it at, or was it Mojave?
Yeah, we were north, Lancaster, right, Brent? It was north of, kind of straight north of the city.
Yeah, Lancaster, and then we kind of jumped around that little area of going out towards Death Valley. We had some friends that were living out on a piece of land a little bit east from there. And then one thing that was really cool is when we were shooting it, it was right around the time Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was coming out, and we watched that, and we had already scouted, but we realized that one of our places that we were going to shoot at is where they filmed the Manson Ranch, which is, you know, out kind of Simi Valley, Corrigan Ranch. So Tip and I got to be running through those same areas that, you know, Brad Pitt was on the horse riding through there. So it was a lot of fun, and we tried to capture some of that magic.
That's great. And did you miraculously found a tree with a bunch of tires all over the place?
Yeah, that was out there. That the first day we were shooting, you know, what was originally just to be the short, you know, our buddy Andy, who was editing and also shot some B-roll, he had hiked out and found that, and then when we saw it, we were like, we just loved that image so much. And because the opening of the film is dealing with, you know, changing a tire, and that becomes this kind of metaphor for, you know, being a man and following through on things and all that stuff. And so the fact that that was out there, it was like, oh, well, this has to be a part of it. You know, it felt too good to be true. So, and yeah, it just was a special moment. So yeah.
That is great. And since this film is all done and under your guys' belt, you guys have plans for a sequel? What's I bet you guys do, right? Sort of like a return to Spirit Quest.
I mean, it almost feels like we have to. I mean, and it would be just so much fun. And I think that, you know, us coming up with those pairings, those kind of duos, the alternate versions of ourselves became kind of an endless game for us to see where we could go. So I could totally see us trying to do a Spirit Quest 2. But I think also too, I think Tip and I, we loved working together. I think we found something really special between our chemistry, just in the creative process, and then also too, just in acting opposite each other as well. So I think what we captured in that night bike ride scene, that kind of, you know, two buddies really being the heart of the film. I think there's a narrative full-length feature of kind of that type of relationship that I think that we would like to try to find next.
Yeah.
Either that, or we're just going to get a movie about the two bandits. I guess we'll have to figure that out down the road.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Stay in Randall forever.
Well, great. Hey, gentlemen, hey, thank you very much for speaking to us about Spirit Quest. Tip, Brent, you guys made a hilarious film. Hopefully, you guys do some more down the road.
Yeah, thank you, Gig. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, thank you. Next time.
Absolutely. Peace.